Testing.
And it's streaming. Are we talking to the mic? Are we talking to the mic the whole time, or just?
We'll be talking in the mic, right, Will? Yeah.
Okay, it's streaming.
Talking to the mic. We don't have to look at the camera, do we? I should be looking at the camera. We should be facing the camera too, right?
Yes.
Cats, okay, facing the camera.
I mean, you don't have to look directly into the camera, but just in the direction.
Right.
Right.
Are you good? You recording now?
I'm recording.
Great. All right.
We're talking about over here on the radio. We're talking to the mic, or just?
We'll be talking in the mic, right, Will? Yeah. Volume, Will.
Okay, it's streaming.
Talking to the mic. We don't have to look at the camera, do we? I should be looking at the camera. We should be facing the camera too, right?
Yes.
Cats, okay, facing the camera.
I mean, you don't have to look directly into the camera, but just in the direction.
Right.
Right.
Are you good? You recording now?
I'm recording.
Great. All right.
We're talking about over here on the radio. We're talking to the mic, or just?
We'll be talking in the mic, right, Will? Yeah. Volume, Will.
Okay, it's streaming.
Talking to the mic. We don't have to look at the camera, do we? I should be looking at the camera. We should be facing the camera too, right?
Yes.
Cats, okay, facing the camera.
I mean, you don't have to look directly into the camera, but just in the direction.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Are you
This
good? You
is
recording now? I'm recording.
WD Buzz, your global radio network, and welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner with your host, Coach Ray Booker and Officer AD. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Will. How's it going?
Man, it's going real good. Thank you so much, guys. I'm looking forward to the broadcast. You have some great shows. This show will air today, and also we will air this again on Saturday morning. Studio WD Buzz, your global radio network. So I understand you guys have a topic today, and it's my addiction, my reality. Coach.
You know, Will, this topic of addiction is so important these days because a lot of us are going through a lot of trials and tribulations. And, you know, me working in the sheriff department, me working with people, right now, addiction seems to be the biggest topic that is going on. You know, we talk about immigration, we talk about all these other things, but it's addiction. Because a lot of us are going through a lot of trials and tribulations. A lot of people just don't know what to do. And here we have Officer AD here, and we're just going to have a conversation about addiction. And we're going to talk about what addiction comes from, how it started, how to get better, and, you know, some solutions. AD, what is addiction?
Well, you know, the thing about addiction is that we really don't necessarily understand, you know, how it.
Look at this.
You know, I think, at least in my opinion, I think a lot of it starts off, you know, when we're young, when you're a young kid or a young child. A lot of it's mirrored. A lot of it is passed on from generation to generation. A lot of it's learned behavior. At least for me, Give you an example. When I was younger, maybe around 5 or 6, I remember.
I should be looking at the camera. You should be facing the camera too.
In my life, a person that I really admired.
Right? Yes.
And I
Okay.
hey, you know what? Give me a beer from the refrigerator, and then get yourself a soda while you're at it, right? So I'd go and I'd grab the beer and I'd take it to him, and then I'd grab my soda and I'd wait for him to to open his, and then I'd open mine, and I always thought to myself, wow, how cool. Like,
All right, good morning, everyone.
experience, what he's experiencing, right? Like to savor that beer. But unbeknownst to me, I don't really know that this individual later down the road in life, ends up becoming an alcoholic, ends up going to jail, ends up getting fired from jobs, has a ruined marriage. All of it starts off so subtle with that beer, that imagery of like, wow, I wanna be able to get old enough to have that beer.
How's it going?
Man, it's going real good. Thank you so much.
AD, I was thinking about, as you were going on, it starts at a young age. We get exposed to these things. We get exposed to people who are influencing our lives. And, it's hard not to want to be to follow in the footsteps of your father or positive people like your uncle or your big brother and things like this. I'm saying all that to say, I'm saying all that to say that at times addiction can be very tricky. And so how do we get our youth more education on that to deal with that? Because like you say, it's a subtle thing. Are we doing a good job, you think? Addiction is so important these days because
for a lot of us
are going through
with the way that technology is, the world, the access to internet, the access
a lot of trials and tribulations,
our children to see, even ourselves. I think a lot of times we don't do a better job of censoring our own children or the people that we
working in the sheriff department. We working with people
behavior.
right now. Addiction seems to be.
But if I did, I would not tell my son, "Hey, go get me a beer."
Biggest topic
I don't want
that is
him
going
to think
on.
that's
we talk about immigration, we talk about all these other things, but it's addiction. A lot of people going through a lot of
that would let them give them the idea that it's cool to drink a beer. Well, I'm an adult, and
a lot of people just don't know what to do. And here we have
I didn't also fall into the traps of alcoholism because I did, but it was
the AD here, and we're just going to have a conversation about addiction, and we're going to talk about what addiction
goes on. If you're not careful,
comes from, how it started, how to get better, and my addiction reality here with Coach Booker and Officer AD. I want to say I got so much to say about addiction, but AD, what is addiction? Let's break it down.
Addiction is that
break the first two words.
Adding.
And so AD, no pun intended.
Really don't necessarily understand.
And diction,
how
dictating. Dictating. So add, dictating, shun at the end. Right. So we break that word down. We're adding something to our lives, dictating to us how to live.
When we're young, when you're a young kid or a young.
This is the basis of this thing that we call addiction.
Child.
And
a lot of it's marriage.
What do you think about that? Why do we feel like we need to add something to our life? What is the need, AD, of adding something to your life? Things are already okay. Why are we tricked?
At least for me,
to feel like something is needed to be added to your life when things are already good.
I should be looking at the camera. Facing the camera too.
My life, a person, the way you grow up, the way you were raised, I really admire.
Yes.
That make you feel that you're secure in your own self. Maybe you didn't have a support. Maybe you don't feel good about yourself. Maybe there's some underlying. And then get yourself a soda. Why you feel the need that this is not enough for you. You know what I mean? I don't know. I go and I do like grab the beer and take it to later on in life. Maybe not so much when I was growing up, but as you get older, you start to realize like, oh wow, there's a world out here, and there's people that perceive you in a certain way, and so you don't want to wait that outside. I think there's a big fear
to open his, and then I'd open mine.
And I always thought to myself, wow, we don't want to be perceived as being less than. We want to, kind of be in the in crowd, so to speak, even though realistically speaking, the in crowd isn't really that cool to begin with, because they've already, in a sense, sold out. You know, what he's experienced, the latest gizmos and gadgets that, you know, we take away from what the, you know, what the person's real values is, and that's the character of the person, what's inside that person. But you know, for me, genuine, I could have 100, you know, Johns, but I can only have one Ray. I don't really know what I'm saying. That to value yourself and take those quirks that you may have, that you may see as like, oh, I need more, you know, really ends up becoming an alcoholic. That's necessarily true. More ends up going to jail.
You know, AD, when we talk about our life is like a journey, it's like a trip, okay? And we talk about going on that trip. And there was an old philosopher who told me one time, he said, stop, slow down, because you might miss a turn somewhere. You miss a turn somewhere, you're going to miss the whole trip.
Subtle, get lost. Fear,
okay, so
like, wow,
we get lost. We're going on the right journey, and we get lost. Let's talk about that, AD, getting lost and getting back on. You know, AD, I was thinking about
it takes on different
as you were going on.
Getting lost, it can apply to anything and anyone in any situation. Realistically, I give you an example. I talked to a gentleman, you know, maybe 10, 12 years ago. I was working at a hospital. I was doing security work, and the guy was in there, and he says, "You know what?" He says, "I know what you're thinking about me." He was in a wheelchair.
It starts at a young age. You know, we get exposed to these things. We get exposed to people who
was a roofer,
who are influenced.
And I fell off the roof and I broke my back. And you know what? The doctors.
In our lives, you know, it's hard not to.
Pharmaceutical wise, a lot of people are addicted to, you know, to OxyContin. But at this time, he was taking it as a form of a painkiller.
To follow in the footsteps of your father or a positive
point where the pain became so much that the OxyContin, he needed it to survive. He needed it to get up in the morning. He needed it to go to sleep at night. He needed it to function. You know,
the people like your uncle or your big brother and things like this. I'm saying all that. You know, I'm saying all that.
He got cut off from the medication after his case and all that was settled. Now he had this addiction, and he still had the back pain. You know,
saying that at times.
That's
addiction.
It's an example of how a person can get off track, as you were saying.
It can be very tricky.
So that particular
and so,
you know,
how do we get
for him? The deck of cards was already stacked pretty high on him. So for him to be able to come out of that, you would have to be willing to deal with pain.
Our youth. Yes, education on that.
We don't want to deal with the pain of reality of our own lives. We want to constantly self-medicate
to deal with that, because like you say, it's a subtle thing. You know, we on this top
gear because we're thinking like somehow that's gonna give us a sense of.
Are we doing a good job? You think?
A sense of self-worth that, oh wow, I matter, I'm important, I'm on track. Look at me, you know, I'm
important these days, because
a lot of us
are going through
with the way that technology is, the world, the access to your livelihood. You know, you got to work twice as hard to try to put this persona,
internet, with a lot of trials and tribulations,
even ourselves, and you would be okay, not have to have this desire to want to stay on track.
You know,
I think a lot of times we don't do a better job of we fool ourselves into believing that we have a problem, when in reality, you know, we don't. Nurturing our own children.
Social conformity. We working in the sheriff department. We working with people earlier, AD, about the in crowd,
right?
And how we want to be a part of something.
Yes.
Something bigger than ourselves. Let's go back to like this Teenage Jim Jones. You know, those people. I was in Frisco, and I remember my uncle took me by the church when they actually had left to go down to South America.
Son, hey, go get
and my uncle said, he said, you know, those people were looking for something bigger than them.
Right.
And they were looking to, and conformity, you know, I was taking a college class. You know, I was amazed at immigration. We talk about all these other things. To be accepted. Addiction. You know, we did a show earlier, AD, about spirituality. See, when we lose our spirituality, that foundation, conformity becomes our spirituality.
Well, I'm an adult.
And I'm starting to see the correlation between conformity and losing your spirituality and the addiction process. So saying all that, when you want to conform,
people just don't know what to do.
What can people
And here we
do
have
to stop trying to conform to something bigger than them, not realizing that they're bigger than the something.
Right. Well, I think, but it was
the AD here, and we're just going to have a conversation about addiction, and we're going to talk about what addiction
goes on. Network. You have to have a group of people, of individuals. Hopefully, they're your friends. Hopefully, they're your family.
You know, if you're not careful,
comes from, how it started, how to get better, and you know,
understand that this phase that you're going through. It's just a phase.
Addiction reality. You hear with Coach Booker and Officer AD.
This is, you know, sometimes we say in life, oh, you know.
I want to say, I got so much to say about addiction.
Out of it. It's just a learning curve. It's a growing pain, right?
Yeah, we very loosely use these terms.
What is addiction?
But in reality,
let's break it down.
Addiction. On top of these individuals in your family or your friends, they can easily get, like you said, they can get lost. Right? Sometimes, you know, we fall into this false sense of comfort.
No pun intended.
Really, not necessarily.
All right.
I'm hanging out with John, Billy, and Jack. Then I'm
cool. Diction.
Cool.
Dictating.
Cool kids, right? In reality,
dictating.
A lot of times, the people that we think are cool are really hurting inside, or really have a lot of issues going on at home. Maybe
Dictating.
they come from a family
Shun at the end.
Not as good as they perceive them to be. So we have to.
We break that word down. We're adding something to our lives, dictating to us how to live.
And we're young,
we allow ourselves to be around, and us as well. Whoever we bring around our own inner circle, because a lot of times we invite that.
You know, you're a young kid. Or a young
this is the basis of this thing that we call addiction.
Child thinking that, oh wow, you know what, I'm gonna have this cool person over. But then you realize, like, wow, you know what? This person,
and
a lot of it's mirror.
What do you think about that? Why do we feel like we need to add something?
Lead you astray and lead you into.
Like, what is the need, AD, of adding something to your life?
You know for a fact that addiction doesn't start off. Drug addiction doesn't start off just
already okay. Why are we tricked?
At least for me,
to feel like something.
That's not how this works.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Needed to be added to your life when things are already good.
Pot or some alcohol, and you try it for the first time and you think it's great. You want to do it again and again.
My life,
but what happens?
The way you grow up, the way you were raised, my
values starts to go south. Because like with any addiction. If you abuse it, if you do it too much, that
make you feel that you're secure in your own self.
It takes you into nowhere land.
I can tell you what happened with me
you
when
didn't
I
have
was 340 pounds, and my addiction food.
Right.
But my stimulus to go eating was something good or something bad would happen. I go straight to go to eat.
I mean, I don't know.
And everybody has a different type of stimulus that triggers
them
to do something.
Take it later on in life. Maybe not so much when I was growing up, but
add to their addiction.
Right.
It took me becoming a diabetic, and the doctor said, "Hey, you don't stop eating so much, you're gonna die." It took that. For me to just like, okay, hey, I better control that stimulus. I still get that stimulus when there's a bad news or there's good news or there's news. I want to go eat, but I can stop. I stop myself before I couldn't stop. So let's talk about that, AD, the stimulus now, because we have different triggers. And I wrote a poem once about a guy telling a girl how bad his neighborhood was and he was having a hard time in school.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the poem, she was like, well, I'm sorry, Pablo, I have the same problem too. So I really can't help you. So a lot of us right now, AD, we're in a situation where, we're going through our own thing and we quote other people for help. But some people have an issue. So there's not a lot of resources, especially for the African American community and the Latino community. Our people, we don't want to go get the help. And like you said earlier, we don't have to go to a psychologist. But what do you recommend people do? Peer groups and stuff like that. But why are people scared to go get help with this?
Values right?
Like character
savor that inside that. But for me, I could have 100.
Like that we're in control, even if we're out of control. I think that's, at least for me, You know, when I had my
John's,
you know,
but I can
with,
only have one rate. I don't really know.
That's kind of how it was. You know, I was in high school, and you know, we would go to these parties, you know, and we would just drink. You know, we didn't even know what we were drinking. You don't have any concept
and take
of what's
those
good liquor or what's good alcohol. You're just, you know, you're just drinking. You know, and the thing of it is it just progresses.
Those
You know
quirks
what I
that
mean?
you may have that you may
Next
see
thing you
as
know,
like,
it's
oh,
like
I need more.
you're constantly drinking
Really
all
ends
the
up
time.
becoming an alcoholic.
Drinking because you're drinking, going to a party because there's nothing else to do on a Sunday. You know what I mean?
Really,
just
more
progresses.
going to jail.
Worse and worse. And
You know,
you think, I got it, I'm under control, I don't have a problem. But then you hear about your friend. Oh, did you hear about John? You know what? He crashed his car and he died.
When we talk about
you know, he was
our life is like a journey, it's like a trip.
Wow, you know, and then it kind of hits you, but you're like,
okay,
well, that's
and we talk about going on that trip.
You understand? And that's the biggest problem that we have in our community is that nobody wants to ever voice.
And there was an old philosopher who told me one time. He said,
nobody wants to air out their dirty laundry. Oh, Uncle Joe went to jail. Nobody wants to tell that, and nobody wants to let anybody know in the family that Uncle Joe went to jail. Well, maybe if people would be more honest in their own circles of family,
slow down, because you might miss a turn somewhere. You miss a turn somewhere, you're going to miss the.
He was an alcoholic, you know, and educate, you know, your family members or your nieces or nephews or whoever, and say, you know, what,
subtle that fear.
Okay, so
like, wow, I want to.
You know, he went to jail, right?
You know, AD. There's a lot of 800-pound elephants in the house.
We get lost. We go on the right journey. We get
lost. You've been in a house where things are so bad that it's silent. You've been there, AD. I've been there before. Her that the things in my household was so bad,
getting lost and getting back on.
Right.
You know,
the gorilla or the elephant, whatever cliche people use, was in there.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But nobody wants to identify or target that. And I think we need, as a society, is to start talking about that 800-pound elephant in the room.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Not to interrupt you, but yeah, I mean,
anything in anyone in any situation, realistically.
That
I'll give you an example. I talked to a gentleman.
That usually it's like a grandmother. If you grew up in a Latino or in a African American family, or even in some white families as well, you always have like
maybe 10, 12 years ago,
the family.
I was working at a hospital. I was doing security work.
The family.
And the guy was in there, and he says, "You know what?" He says,
"Sometimes that person passes on, or they leave, or there's a divorce, or whatever the case may be." And that family structure,
you're thinking about me. He was in a wheelchair.
And the thing of it is, we as family, as friends, as
young age, you know, we get exposed to these things. We get exposed to people who are influenced.
You know, this fell off the roof, and I broke my back. Stop living life. And you know what? The doctors continue to check in with each other at the dinner table. Hey, how was your week? How was your day? We don't do that. You know, we're not conditioned to do that. Why? Because
you know, it's hard not to
want to let anybody know that we're hurting. I think women are pretty good about that. I'd say they
pharmaceutical wise, a lot of people
do. You know, they have their little wine parties or their morning mimosas, and they talk amongst themselves about what's going on in the world.
But at this time, he was taking it as a form of painkiller.
Follow the footsteps of your father.
And this was where addiction comes in. You know what? Hey, you know what?
For me, was that point where the pain became so much that
I want to have a beer. You know, to help me deal and cope with my own issues, because I
needed it to survive. He needed it to get up in the morning. He needed it to go to sleep at night. He needed it to function.
You know what I mean?
You know, we have to understand. We're here with Officer AD here. This is Coach's Corner.
Like your uncle,
Coach Ray
or your big brother.
We're gonna have dynamite topic today. Addiction, my reality, and addiction. Doesn't, you know, I'm saying allows you to be in reality. That's the thing about it. It's not reality. It's a fantasy.
Now he had this addiction, and he still had the back pain.
You know, they got these pills now, ecstasy. They got all these things that people
say that at times.
That's
it's creating a lot of sheep out here. A lot of lost sheep.
Yes.
We gotta, you know, and people like us who've been through things. None of us is clear of addiction. We all have something that we're battling. Okay, and so I mean, we have something. So, my point in saying that is,
how do we get
for him?
My addiction, my reality,
is already stacked.
Is a fantasy. Remember, addiction is a fantasy. We want people to wake up, just like the song says that introduced me. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes of Wake Up People.
Right.
What is our wake up drug?
Well, here's the reality about the reality. Okay, there is a reality.
Our youth gets more education on that.
That's constantly addicted to a substance, whether it be alcohol, drugs, sex, pornography, shopping, eating. There's an underlying reality there.
We want to
constantly. The thing of it is that unfortunately there's also a guilt, and we talked about this before.
Right, guilt.
For a lot of people,
self-medicate.
It is a true
reality. To deal with that, because like you say, it's the subtle thing.
Distorted, because after they're done doing whatever they were doing, after they're done feeding the addiction, right? There's a sense of guilt.
You know, we on this topic
gear because we're thinking
really
like somehow
about,
that's gonna give us a sense.
That guilt bug, AD, is really a really big thing.
Yes.
Because it's not talked about.
Are we doing a good job, you think?
It's not talked about. Guilt is something really. That word is a really bad word that people avoid.
Yes.
And I don't know if it has something to do with people going to jail, being guilty or whatever. I don't know where that comes from.
Look at me,
but let's talk about
a lot of us are going through
behind the way that
technology is. The details of the process of first of all, what guilt does to you as a person in your relationships.
World.
Let's talk about that. How does that affect you in your relationships? Being guilty all the time. Feeling guilty. And correlate that with addiction.
A lot of trials and tribulations.
Give you an example. Let's say you're self-helping
ourselves, and you would be okay not have to have this desire to
kind of rocky, right?
Right.
And you're trying so hard to keep this person in your life.
Want to stay on track.
This person stresses
I think a lot of times we don't do a better job of sending fool ourselves into believing that we have
who you really are, because you're afraid they're going to run away from you. They're not going to love you. Because
in reality, we don't. Treating our own children.
Social conformity.
You need your addiction. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us
in the sheriff department, we working with people earlier.
We want to compete. We want to feel that. We want to feel good, right? And we think that we need to do all these extra things to really feel good about ourselves.
And how we want to be a part of something.
Yes.
Something bigger than ourselves.
Like this.
We weren't smart enough. We weren't pretty enough. We weren't whatever the case.
Those people.
Put that inside.
I was in Frisco, and I remember my uncle took me by the church when they actually had left to go down.
You understand? And you don't want to tap into that because you're afraid.
To South America.
Hey, go get.
And my uncle said, those people were looking for something bigger than them.
A girlfriend or a wife or whatever the case may be. You're afraid to expose that.
And they were looking to
know that you feel guilty.
Conformity, I was taking a college class. I was amazed
about immigration. We talk about all these other things.
To be accepted.
Addiction.
We did a show earlier.
And what happens when you feel guilty? You want to feel better, right? Oh, I had a bad
day. About spirituality. See, when we lose our spirituality, that foundation.
It didn't work. I want to have a beer. I want 2 beers. And now maybe, you know what? Maybe now.
Conformity becomes our spirituality.
I don't want to wait on my girl. She's mad. This other girl's willing to talk to her.
I'm an adult.
Talk to her.
And I'm starting to see the correlation.
And made a big mistake. And now the guilt multiplies again. And now you need to suppress it with more addiction.
So addiction is compound interest.
Yes.
That's what happens. So as you feel conformity, as you feel guilty, losing your spirituality, the guilt builds and builds and builds.
Yes.
And so as the guilt, in comparison, as a paradox, AD, this is wild. This is the addiction. As the guilt is a paradox. So saying all that, in comparison, the addiction goes as the guilt goes. The guilt goes high, the addiction goes higher.
Right.
But the addiction always has to be higher. And when you want to
you just don't know what to do. And here we have
just stop. Trying to
the guilt can be either a contributing factor, or it could be the guilt can also be a factor.
Something bigger than them.
There's the guilt that you feel when you fed into the addiction, right? You went through the whole gambit, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the guilt that you feel when,
let's
say, you're trying to deal with the addiction, and you identify that there's an issue, and you went back to that activity or that behavior, and you feel bad inside.
AD here, and we're just going to have a conversation about addiction. And
the clinical word, they call it relapsing, right? They say a person's been sober from whatever ailment.
We'll talk about what addiction is
on a network. You have to have a group
of people. They haven't. They fell off the wagon. That's the term they always say. Oh, you fell off the wagon, John.
People of individuals. Hopefully they're your friends. Hopefully they're your family. If you're not careful,
comes from how it started.
Either gonna help you to see that this thing that you're dealing with, you did it again, and you feel bad.
How to get better, and
on your mind, you'll understand
this phase that you're going through.
This is not a good guilty feeling. You want to get better, and the way to get better is not by adding more addiction to your life, but by subtracting it and dealing with that guilt to help you feel better.
It's just a phase.
Addiction reality here with Coach Booker and Officer A.
An excuse. Oh, I had a bad day. You know what? I couldn't cope after a week. I had to have a drink.
Indeed.
And then let's say, relapse is kind of like,
I want to say,
go ahead and get away with it and still be within my program. Well,
no, I got so much to say about addiction.
You've already undermined
learning curve.
It's growing in your own mind. You know what I'm saying? You're already using it as a scapegoat. You're not using it as a term.
Right? Yeah, we very use these terms. What is addiction? Let's break it
down. On and on about guilt. I'm gonna transform it to a different type of form.
On top of these individuals in your family.
About guilt, and this is how I'm gonna say it: dumbing down. Dumbing down in our communities, Latino communities especially, Black communities. One kid is doing good, and he sees everybody else in a group not doing good.
Right.
And we dummy down to fit in.
Yes.
That's an addiction too.
No pun intended.
I'm struggling with that. Having to remove myself from people who didn't want better.
All right.
This is a big one because nobody wants to feel like they're the only guy.
Right.
Let's talk about that dumbing down and how big that is in our communities and what can we do to get better with that. And the guilt comes in when you are doing better and you say you have a job and Pablo and Tyrone, they're out here stealing.
Really have a lot of,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you feel guilty. So you dummy down. So you get the addiction. They don't have the addiction dumbing down. They have the addiction of stealing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Because it affects us as young men and even adults at our jobs. Yeah. We dummy down and we don't want people to know what we know because we're afraid of what they like to live.
And we're young now.
That's a big problem that we have in this country. I think that we don't have enough people encouraging, our children, ourselves, our peers,
whoever we bring
friends,
around our own inner circle. Because a lot of times,
dumbing down is the term, like they say, go along to get along. Well,
we invite that when you're a young kid.
This is the basis of.
If you're intelligent, right? I mean, there's different levels of intelligence, obviously. If you're a great mechanic, that's great. You shouldn't have to try
this thing that we call addiction.
Child thinking that,
vice versa. But yeah, unfortunately, you know what? We have this complex that we want to, like you said,
I'm going to have this cool person over, but
they don't have realize desire to want to get out of that phase in their life. So we kind of keep them around.
What do you think about this? Why do we feel like
right? It's like you have that brother-in-law, or maybe that brother or that sister
to add something
to you astray and lead you into.
Like, what is the need, AD, of adding something?
Well, you know what? I still give him that $10 because I know that he needs it and he needs help, and I'm going to give him money hoping that he doesn't go get high.
Addiction doesn't start off.
Reality, you know that's exactly what he's
already okay. Why are we tricked?
At least for me,
as well, because you're masking the issue. You should say to yourself, you know what?
To feel like something.
That's not how this works.
Right.
You know what I mean? Out there, running amok. But me, you know what, man? I don't need to do that. I got a job, or I want to do something better with my life, and that's the difference between.
You know what I'm saying?
Needed to be added to your life when things are already good.
Time on you. You wouldn't be their friend. They'd be gone.
That's the thing. That's the thing. They wouldn't do it.
Nope.
That's the thing. Yep. So we get to the word enabling because all of these words are offshoots of something else. So as well as you dummy down is a form of addiction.
Try it for the
first enabling is a form of addiction. We enable so many things and so many people in our lives. We enable our kids, and I don't know. Part of it is social media, society. You can contribute to what. I'm through playing the blame game. It is what it is. We're big enablers in this country.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes I like the social programs that we have, but then sometimes I think they just want to be money-making scams and enablers.
Yes.
And like you said, the bottom line is it starts with you, that you have to make the decision to do what you're going to do and get better in your life.
Yeah.
If you use it, if you do it too much.
Unfortunately, you know what? For a lot of us, there has to be a tragedy. Like we talked about in this last segment. There always has to be a trigger point. Something
that make you feel that you're secure in your own self.
Right.
You know,
the lights to go off. You know what I mean? To have that computer in your mind rebooted. And that's sad. Like, you shouldn't have to have something so tragic happen for you to stop.
I can tell you what happened with you when I was
doing something that's wrong. You know what I mean? What I mean by wrong is if you
guys
do something to feed that addiction, and now that addiction's gotten so deep in your life, it's controlling your life, that you're losing your job, you're losing your family, your wife is leaving you, you keep getting fired from jobs. You know what I mean? Or you go. Worst case scenario, you get arrested. You go to jail.
Maybe there's some to go eating was something good or something.
You know, put the pedal to the metal and say, "Hey,
then bad would happen." I go straight to go eat.
I mean, I don't. If you cannot change your ways, then you are going to be basically, you know, on a ship, on a boat with no paddle.
Everybody has a different type of stimulus that triggers.
We as a society. And society also fails
to do something.
Take it later on in life. Maybe not so much growing up, but as
to their addiction.
The reality of the root problem. You know what I mean? What do they want to do? Well, we'll just we have a drug problem, and you know.
It took me becoming a diabetic, and the doctor said, "Hey,
maybe they'll just smoke so much of it that they'll just not want to do any more drugs."
Wow.
Right?
Stop eating so much, you're gonna die. It took the gateway drug for me to just like, okay, hey, I better. Control this. There's a bad news, there's good news, there's new. Because marijuana people swear that they're not addicted. It's not an addictive form habit.
Right.
Oh, it's just a habit. I want to go eat, but I can social stop. Stop myself before. So let's talk about that. That word social makes me sick.
Yes.
Okay, because social is an excuse to do this now. Because we have different triggers. Marijuana, the gateway drug, and how is that going to affect us now? Really? With our young people already doing it anyway. Giving them a guy telling the girl how bad to do it. How's that going to affect us?
Well, you know, like I said,
a hard time in school.
You know, where
and at the end of the poem,
where's your foundation? I mean, you know, it could be legal everywhere else in the world, but if your money
isn't really,
well, you know, I'm sorry, Pablo, I have the same problem too.
It's not going to be legal.
So I really can't help you.
You know what I mean? So and it's the same thing with employers, businesses. You know, a lot of people. Hey,
a lot of us right now, we are in a situation where
so you know, guess what? Go find yourself another job, right? That's the reality.
Quote other people for help, but some people have it
right? And guilt. Now it's like, okay. Yeah, we're going to throw it out there for you. Go ahead and do it. But don't come back and be upset that you can't get a job. Don't come back and be upset that you feel guilty and you have to feed.
So there's not, there's not a lot of resources, especially for the African American
circle. Yes, it's
a vicious circle. It's a vicious circle, AD.
Yes, it is.
Oh, guys, here we are in Studio W here live on YouTube. Our people with Officer AD and Coach Ray Booker. All you studio listeners out there from Texas, from Florida, from Las Vegas, we don't have to go to Dallas, New York, Richmond, Virginia. We really, really welcome you here. Now you can Coach Booker's Coach's Corner is live on YouTube now. What do you recommend? You can always go back and listen to the show. Again, this is the property. Coach's Corner is a Studio W, which retains the right to peer groups and stuff like that. But sorry about that. Why is it? I got to travel getting that word out. Again, here we're talking about addiction. My addiction, my reality. Are people scared to go get help? There's so many forms of addiction, and as we talk, we're mostly talking about cocaine and opioids. You hear about that all the time, but you never hear about these other ones, like these subtle ones that happen to us all every day. Let me give you another one, AD. Here's another addiction. We're sitting here at a camp where we have 400 or 500 pound people there.
Right. You know, when I had my
John,
and we're talking about food. These people want to lose the weight.
Right.
They want to lose that weight. But I look at all these reality shows that nobody goes into the psychology piece of the weight.
We would go
you
to
talk
parties,
about, the Biggest Loser.
Right.
But it's bigger than The Biggest Loser. It's your mental.
Drink, right?
It's spiritual because your condition at that time at 400 or 500 pounds has nothing to do with who you are.
Right.
It's what led you at that point mentally and your spiritual breakdown
Right.
that led to you getting all that weight, AD. So, AD, we talked about this earlier a little bit. We've got 300 or 400 pound people, and we see these people on TV.
So you may
they
have
can't
it,
even
you
get out of
see
their
like, oh,
bed.
really ends up
How do you
becoming
get to that
alcoholic.
point, AD? I know this sounds cliche to say this, but how do you get to that point? And what are we going to do
going to a party because
as a society? Because we're eating ourselves to death.
You know what I mean?
I said, a lot of people think that the guns and the wars and all these other things are the bad things. But I think the fork is our biggest addiction.
I got it. I'm under control. I don't have a
The fork is our biggest addiction.
And you hear about your friend. Oh, did you hear about John?
Exactly.
You know what,
The thing of it is,
he crashed his car and he died.
We're not here to judge anybody, obviously, but
Right.
but there are people that have medical conditions that do not allow them to lose.
Talk
weight.
about
It's
our life is like a journey. It's like a trip.
But I get what you're saying for the
You know?
layman, for the person,
And then it
who just,
kinda
is
hits
down in the
you,
dumps in their own
but you're
life.
like,
Okay,
Whatever
and
they
we talk about
that, maybe they were 180 pounds. Okay, I'm not too bad. Now they're 400 pounds, 500 pounds.
Going on that trip
is in danger. They don't lose this
understand?
weight, they're
And
gonna
that's
die, right?
Right.
And like you said, okay, you make
And
them
that's
go
the
through all
biggest
this,
problem
jump through all
that we
these
have
hoops
in our
and they lose all
community
this
is that-
weight. And like you said, what a lot of people don't tell you is that at the end of the day, a lot of these people end up going back to
Nobody
the same
wants
size
to
they were or
ever
bigger.
and there was an open post one time said
Nobody wants to
The psychological, the spiritual help, the foundation that they need to be able to understand that. Listen,
Oh, Uncle Joe
yes,
went to
you lost
jail.
all
Nobody
this
wants to
weight,
tell
you
them
were
that.
this size, but you know what? That person has always been there. You are that person. This is just a facade.
Nobody
This
wants
is
to
just
let
a
anybody in my
body.
family
You know
that
what I
Uncle
mean?
Joe went to
When you
jail.
can help somebody
Well,
to
maybe-
love themselves inside for who they are, the weight will come off on its own.
If people
And
would
there's
be
a lot of
more
reasons why
honest
people
in their own
Stop.
to that
Slow
family.
down,
You know
because you
what?
might miss a turn somewhere.
You
miss a turn.
over the course of the years, and I've asked, hey, body image. Why are you allow yourself to be this big? Well,
Turn somewhere, you're gonna miss the.
tragic happened to me.
a
Sexual assault, or I was molested, or whatever. I don't feel good about myself. Maybe they're
your
dealing
family
with
members or
depression.
your nieces
There's a
or
lot of
nephews or
underlying
whoever.
issues like we're
And
talking
say you
about.
Oh, trust.
subtle, get that fear.
Okay, so
like, wow.
That basically feeds an addiction. And in this case, these are people, like you said yourself, they eat to feel good about themselves. But the problem is that
I want to know
he
he went to jail, right?
I mean,
You
gotta be
know,
able to
AD,
feed
there's-
the spirit. You got to be able to feed the individual inside that
A lot
going to
of
say, you know what, you don't need to eat that.
800-pound elephants in the
We
house.
get lost.
We
We
go
go
on the right journey.
Something that we all go through in life, and we need to continue to work on it.
We get lost.
in the
Just
house
talk
where
things are so bad.
Yes, you do have to do
that-
the walking. Yes, you do have to do the diet, eat right, eat healthy, but not the expense that you're
Silent.
gonna,
You've been
create a
there, AD?
monster
I've been there
to
before,
feed another
her.
addiction,
That-
because now
that-
you have guilt multiplied by the addiction multiplied by another bigger guilt.
The
multiplied
compound. The things in my
About
household
that,
were so bad.
AD. Getting lost and
That
getting
nobody,
back on.
everybody in
Right.
studio love you,
They
man.
say,
I
know
want you
that-
to understand that addiction is a compound interest, and if you're not careful, it'll go bigger than the natural.
The gorilla or the elephant, whatever.
So we all have a
cliche
natural
people
gift
use.
inside of us.
I was in there.
It'll bankrupt.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But nobody wants to
I-
identify
it'll
or
definitely
target that. And I think
Laziness.
Yes,
Is laziness an addiction?
it can be.
we need as a society
I want
to
to
start talking about that
there's no
800-pound
cure.
elephant in the room.
That stuck with me
Mhm.
because in
Right.
that, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Not to interrupt you, but yeah, I mean,
In your
anything
question, your
in
journey
any
to be better.
Right.
There's a lot of laziness out here,
Mhm.
and that's a part of dumbing down too. Because it's dumbing down the lazy
I'll
people.
give you an
And
example.
that's why
I talked
we
to a
can't
gentleman that
afford to
usually
have
it's like
people
a
in our circle
grandmother if,
who don't pull their weight.
You grew up in a Latino or a
So laziness is a disease, I think. I really think, AD, I think laziness is a disease because
in an African American family, or even in some white families as
I
well.
think
you
at
always
some
have,
point
like,
when
that
you
major
don't
major
deal
struggle.
with your addiction and deal with these issues you have, I think you can get a form of laziness. And the form of laziness is not necessarily being on the couch potato.
Right.
It's not necessarily not wanting to go to work every day.
I was in there and he says, you know what?
It's not doing something about your addiction.
Right.
So you can be lazy and not do something about your addiction.
Yeah,
You're with me, AD?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm right on there. Yeah.
Or there's a
And
divorce,
unfortunately,
whatever
like
the case may be.
we fall
And
into
that family
these false, this false sense of entitlement.
Structure,
that,
you're thinking about
I'm
me,
okay,
he was in the
this
wheelchair.
is you got a problem, I don't. I'm fine. Everybody else, the whole world is,
And the thing of it is, we,
trouble, but I'm
as
okay.
family, as friends,
You know what I
as,
mean?
as
That's
Young age.
yeah, that is a form of laziness because you want to have somebody.
You know, we get exposed to these things. We get exposed to people who,
you know, the world is a rough place. You know, don't worry about it. You're gonna be okay.
who are
influenced.
I fell off the roof and then I broke my back.
Says, okay, well,
And
that
you know what?
person
The
I need to
doctor
do okay, so I'm just gonna keep doing what
to
I
check
been
in with
doing,
each other
right? Because they're saying that I have a problem. I'm
at the
sick.
dinner table.
You know?
Hey, how was
But in
your
reality,
week? How
it's
was your
like,
day?
no,
We don't do
You're
that.
not sick. Somebody
we're
put
not
that in your
conditioned to
head
do that.
you're
Why?
sick,
Because
right? So you're gonna run with it until somebody tells you, "Hey, man," calls you out and says, "No, dude, you're not sick. You're
Lot.
sick."
You know, it's hard not to
want
want
yourself to want to get rid of those problems that are
let anybody know that
basically
we're
killing
hurting.
you slowly.
I think
Because that
women are
laziness
pretty good about
does
that.
kill.
I'd say it kills
Pharmaceutical
your
wise.
activity, it kills your ambition, it kills everything around you. Nobody wants to be around somebody
People
who
do,
doesn't
they
have
have
the
their
little
little
wine,
Oxycontin Marties or
move
their
along
morning
in life.
mimosas, and they
You know,
they
life
talk
isn't
amongst
easy.
themselves about what's
You know what
going
I mean?
on
But it
in the
doesn't
world.
have
This
to be forsaken life either. You know,
time,
for the
he was taking
majority
it as a
Laziness is
form of
part of
that.
self-defense.
You're following the footsteps of your
You're sitting around
father.
and you want someone else to pick up your weight
Hey,
and pull your weight for you,
right,
and you're taking away from them.
right.
you know what?
But that's the part of the narrative too comes because that person still feels that he needs to help you, even when you don't want to get off your butt.
Right.
You see,
you know, to help me.
there was a
heal
Spanish
and cope
explorer,
with my
Cortez, I
issues,
think it
because
was. He believed that the streets were paved with gold.
I needed it.
I don't know. Obviously, our streets are not paved with gold, but America is paved with opportunity.
Right.
Okay? We have these opportunities. With all these opportunities in this country, AD, we still have people lazy.
We have to
Now,
understand. We're
my
here with
point,
Officer AD.
and
Here,
maybe
this
it's
is
an
coaches.
option
People
for
like your uncle,
with
or
with all these opportunities
brother,
that we have, and all these social
addiction.
things
My
that we
addiction,
have,
my reality.
and all these places where we can go get help. Is that really
And
counterproductive?
you know, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Explain why you think so.
Because it's like a rat race. They're setting you up for failure. They're telling you that, hey, if you do not drive this type of car, if you don't make this type of money, if you don't have this type of woman in your life, if you're not a pillar of society, then you are a failure. Well, okay, well, all right. Okay, but what if there's people that are different? What if there's people that are just as smart?
Not just being reality.
Maybe,
That's the thing about it. It's not reality.
Where they're disenfranchised. Are they still a failure?
It's a fantasy.
Now he had this.
Society says so. We're going to go on that right now.
You know, they got these
Society
pills
says so.
now.
That's a part of my addiction, my reality. We're here with Officer AD and Coach Ray Booker, a dynamite show here. My addiction, my reality. People are hurting right now, AD. People are hurting inside. They're looking for all these things. Let's talk about religion for a minute here. Religion, there's an addiction in that too.
Yes.
See, there's a difference between spirituality and religion.
Right.
This is where the churches and everything have really lost the ball.
Right.
These religious fanatics, I've met them before. And these people are so far gone that they don't believe in
all
themselves
these things
that they believe in religion.
that at times
It's
creating
a lot of religion,
a lot of lost sheep
that is contributed.
We gotta, and
addiction.
people like us who've been through things.
Again, go back to
None of
Jim
us
Jones.
are clear of addiction. We all have something
Can be
very
very
true.
hard. Back in,
Okay, and so
I took everybody
we
to
have
Jonestown in South America. These religious people,
my point
who are
in
leaders,
saying that is, how do we
that
get
are really taking advantage of the sheep.
Yes.
And I want to talk about this, AD, because it's really bothering me about the way our country is going.
My addiction, my reality,
is how there's a lot of disenfranchising our communities, and it's becoming a money making thing.
It's a fantasy. Remember, addiction is a fantasy.
I'm not saying every church.
I'm
not saying every organization, But the proof is in the pudding.
Right.
If our country is built on
people to wake up, just like
moral
you
and Christian
said
principles,
that introduced me.
Harold Melvin and the Blue. You know, why are we going through these drugs? People are replacing religion or their spirituality with drugs. People are replacing their spirituality with chasing money, chasing women, chasing this,
what is
chasing
wake
that,
up drug?
depressing people.
Well, here's the reality of
what's your thoughts on
about
that?
the
There's a term
reality.
called
Okay,
there is a reality.
deal with
Saying, are you? Yes,
years and years and years, and you're never going to catch the tail of the dragon. You know, and it's not until you
constantly addicted to a substance, whether it be alcohol.
And it's the same thing with organized religion. You know what? They're going to sell you, or they're going to lead you into a direction where they're going to tell you, okay,
pornography, shopping, eating,
whatever faction of the church they're going to, right? This is
what the underlying goals are. The thing of it is,
and by the way, yeah, here's some stuff about Jesus that you should also know. But let's get back to what the church wants, right? The church says we want so much tithing from you every month. And we want you to do this, and we want you to do that, and we want you to quit your job, and we want you to work specifically for the church, because then they try to tell you that supposedly, that this is what Jesus would want for you to do, right? And there's people that are sad, they really, really wholeheartedly are devoted, Christians or Muslims or whatever religion they are, and they give in to that, right? And they really believe that they're doing the Lord's work by giving these people who are taking advantage of them, what little that they have. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I've been to churches where a lot of people
self-medicated.
I became a more spiritual person. I was in organized religion, and I would go to different.
Because, like you say, it's something
distorted because you were putting inside the basket. People really do that, and it's like it should not matter if you're giving 10 cents. $10, and they're done doing whatever they were doing that feeds that. After they're done feeding the, and that's like you said, that's the difference between organized religion and spirituality are two different things, and that's why a lot of people get it twisted, thinking that, we have to do organized religion. No, you do not. If you have a spiritual relationship with God, right, and you believe in Jesus Christ, or at least you believe that there is a God and that there's something bigger than us in this universe, then that's the beginning. There's a sense that here because we're getting to tap into your spirituality. But if you're thinking that a church is going to
really
go out there,
that's going to give us a sense
of guilt,
and it's going to keep you out of your addictions, then you're wrong.
AD is really a really big thing.
Yes,
because
you have to be able to dig deep.
It's not talked about.
Good job.
Admit to him and to yourself that there are some issues with you that go deeper than the church.
It's not talked about. Guilt is something really. That word is a really.
That's a totally different
story.
That's a totally different situation than what the actual organized religion is putting out.
Bad words that people avoid,
Yes.
And I don't know if it has something to do with people going to jail, being guilty or whatever. I don't know how. I'm going to go to hell. I'm going to go by myself. You're not going to take me to hell.
Right.
I'm going to go on my own ticket. If that's. But just talk about
there's a
hell, whatever. I'm going to go.
The details.
I'm going to write my own ticket. You're not going to take me.
Right.
And so, saying that,
the process
our people just need to get a
first of all, what guilt does
to get a backbone. We need to go back to
as a person in your relationship,
our old traditions. And I'm scared.
How does that affect you?
These millennials,
being guilty of.
I've heard they're taking detergent, Tide Pods
all the time.
Feeling guilty.
And young people are
a lot of trials and tribulations. You know, in the store now, you can't go get. They lock the detergent up now.
Wow.
Because people are eating detergent. People are. We talk about the compound interest. How people are steadily challenging themselves to find something bigger and bigger and bigger. That's another form of addiction, of trying to find something else to start another addiction.
This person in your life.
Start another trend.
This person stresses.
I'm a little nervous because by the time we go to the old folks' home, we're going. I'm scared to think about what our young people are going to do.
They are because
I had to think about this. I had to say, I better treat my kids decent because they,
because in reality,
I'm going to get old one day.
We don't treat our own children.
What can we do, AD? We're in our 40s. We're talking to these millennials.
Right.
They seem to not listen anymore. They seem to not listen to the traditions. They seem to want to make their own way. Laxing is a big thing. Compound that with the marijuana. What direction? How did we fail? Because it's part of it is on us too.
Right.
And a lot of the millennials tell us, the biggest thing with you guys is you guys don't practice what you preach.
Right.
So you know what? We do what we want to do. We're going to make our own way. What's your response?
I think millennials are the same. I think it goes from generation to generation. You and I, we were
how we want to be a part of something.
Yes.
Something bigger than that.
Generation before that were the baby boomers. And before that, you had the golden years. They weren't smart enough. Every generation has problems. You had the hippies. Now we have the hipsters. There was a time in our society when gangs were prominent. Everybody wanted to be involved in a gang. If you weren't in a gang, you weren't cool.
Whatever.
Those starting to phase out. People are realizing people are going to prison. People are going to jail. People are dying. The whole thing with the marijuana now, put that inside.
I was in Frisco and I remember my uncle took me back.
But the thing that stays true is the human spirit. You could be a millennial, right? And unfortunately for a lot of these kids,
at a church where they actually had left to go down.
They're in now because, if you don't have at least a bachelor's in this day and age, you know what? You're going to suffer. Nobody's going to want to hire you. Realistically, I mean, I have a friend who's in the corporate,
and you don't want to tap into that because you're
from South America.
Hey, go get
They don't want 401ks. They say basically, you know what? We don't see ourselves working for your company for more than 2 or 3 years. So why don't you just give us our money up front? We don't even care about.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Those people were looking for something bigger than them.
Of some of these millennials, it's instant gratification, and where does that come from? Again, from what they've seen, the way they were raised, the environment, society, maybe their parents.
Being spoiled.
That too. Yeah. Because the thing of it is we talked about this in the last segment. We as parents, expose that. We don't want our children to suffer, right? We don't want society to suffer as a whole. But you know what? Pain is good sometimes. Sometimes you need to feel.
And they were looking to
know that you feel guilty.
Conformity,
cold. You need to know what it's like to walk in a pair of old sneakers and not have new sneakers for a while for you to appreciate, the things that are important. You know what I'm saying? So I think that these millennials at some point,
I was amazed by immigration.
Man, that if they're not careful, that addiction's going to take them over. All this vaping, all these e-cigarettes, the marijuana,
to be addiction,
drugs that they're bringing them back like this. There's this one that's it can lead you into cardiac arrest. It's called fentanyl. A lot of people don't realize this is synthetic heroin. This is something that somebody created. Exactly like
what happens when you feel guilty. You want to feel better, right?
But it's really a synthetic heroin. And if you do not get a, I forgot the name of the actual shot, but they use it to basically
revive you.
Yeah, to revive your heart. If you don't
have spirituality, see, when we lose our spirituality, that foundation,
you're going to pass away. You will die. You will die within seconds. It affects your cardiac. It puts you into cardiac arrest. The thing of it is that our youth, and now maybe don't realize that maybe
conformity becomes our spirituality.
They feel good. They feel like somebody told them that they're not good enough, so they want to be with the cool kids. Well, guess what? The cool kids are not cool. They're out here.
I don't want to wait on my girl. She's mad. This other girl's one.
There's one called Charlie Sheen. And basically what it is, it's
I'm an adult.
Color.
I'm starting to see the correlation.
So that way when these kids are taking the drug, that weird, like they call it the drip, the sensation when it's going through your nasal passages in your throat. Now it's
multiplies again, and now you need to suppress it with more addiction.
So addiction is compound interest.
Yes. Wow. So these drug addicts, these people, whoever's manufacturing the drugs in the world, are catering to our youth. They're catering to your children to make them believe that. Oh,
that's what happens. So as you feel conformity, as you feel guilty, then
no, it's not going to make you feel good. It's going to land you either in prison, in jail, dead or in a really, really compromised position. And, we see it all the time. And we were walking down, coming down the freeway, and we were talking about what drives a
and losing your spirituality, the guilt builds and builds and builds.
In the morning, as opposed to going to a regular 9-to-5 job where the risk to reward is a lot less. You know what I'm saying?
I get you. Before, I want you to hold it.
Right.
At Studio W, we want to raise money for the show, Coach's Corner and The Connection. Remember, download that app, IMG2. Imagine
so
my God
the
2.
guilt
Imagine
in comparison
my God
as a
2.
paradox.
You can also call in 844-978-8346. You hear what Officer AD and Coach Ray Booker.
This is why the addiction as a guilt is a paradox.
At the end of the show, we're going to have a PO box number where you can send donations for the show. Our engineer here will make sure that we have that PO box address for you. So AD, don't let me forget. We're trying to raise money, keep this show on the air, and keep Studio W live. I can't keep talking about these. In comparison, the addiction goes as a Generation X,
right?
Who was raised by the baby boomers. The baby boomers are the largest population.
The addiction goes higher.
Right.
But the addiction also has to be higher.
There's not enough people.
No.
They're suffering, a lot of them.
Yes.
When you want to just don't know what to do. Here we are. Just stop trying to.
But our kids aren't going to make the money we have. This generation is the first generation that won't be better than the generation before.
Right.
Now, the paradox in that, AD, is that
or it could be
we spoil these kids and enable them.
Right.
With a lot. I've seen it from the first lady I dated.
Something bigger than them.
To not realize to blah, blah, blah. The list goes down the line.
Right.
Okay? Every kid I've met is spoiled in this country.
Right.
Especially the millennials. And the millennials now, everything's on the fly with them.
The guilt that you feel.
There's no concrete
say you're trying
agenda. They don't have a plan. Their plan is on the fly.
There's an issue,
and
you went back to that activity or that behavior.
On the job training, okay? I'm a little nervous, AD, because we've created a spoiled generation
bad inside
with no evidence.
We just want to have a conversation about
because when you spoil kids,
addiction
the harder it is to teach them ethics.
They call it relapse.
Because the entitlement piece,
right? Let's say a person's been sober,
kind of makes them feel like that no one, there's nothing
about what addiction is.
What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think as a society in general, they have society, meaning
they fell off the wagon. This is true. They always say, "Oh, you fell off the wagon."
Parents, grandparents, we've taken these children and we've sheltered them.
Individuals, hopefully they're your friends, hopefully your family. If you're not careful,
comes from
work, ethics, integrity, morals, values. Working hard for something.
They're gonna help you to see that this thing that you're dealing with. You did it.
You want to wash my windows? I'll give you a couple of dollars. Okay, right? I mean, that's kind of how you went about getting the things you wanted in life.
You feel bad.
No, everything is. Oh, mommy will pay for it. Daddy will pay for it. Or
you'll understand this phase that you're going through. This is not a good guilty feeling.
It's unfortunate.
This is sad. You want to get better.
And it seems like
the way to get better.
I see a lot of that now. I see a lot of young kids that
better is not by adding more addiction to your life,
they're kind
but
of like
by subtracting it and dealing with that.
And there's a few of them that are trying to, make it, but a lot of them, unfortunately,
to help you feel better. It's just a phase.
Addiction is reality. You hear with Coach Booker and Officer
A. I had a bad day. You know what? I couldn't.
The reality of it is that man, your 20s go by fast and your 30s go by faster.
Hope after a week I had to have a drink.
It's a sad situation, but. You just got to try to educate them as best as you can.
I want to say,
get away with it and still be within my program.
That they think.
I got so much to say about addiction.
You've already undermined learning curve. It's growing in your own
15
mind.
minutes, guys. We have 15 minutes. I'm told by the engineer here. We have 15 minutes.
You're already using that as a scapegoat. You're not using it as a term.
There's a couple questions. We're going to bring
Yeah,
we're going to bring the
very
CEO in.
use these terms. What is addiction?
Let's break it down for us. He's going to chime in.
All right.
And ask some questions, AD.
On
and on about guilt. I'm gonna transfer.
So we're not quite, but almost 90 minutes. But and by the way, before we forget, let me give you
the first individuals in your family
about guilt. And this is how I'm gonna say it.
Go on, man. This is a powerful show. Matter of fact, they didn't identify
dumbing down.
Law enforcement officers.
Dumbing down in our communities, Latino communities especially, black communities.
That P.O. Box is studio.
So one kid is doing good, and he sees everybody else in a group.
San Bernardino, California, 924.
Not doing good.
Right.
And we dumbing down
887
to fit in.
Yes.
That's an addiction too.
Pun intended.
I'm struggling with that.
You think is you get some valuable information, then please.
Having to remove myself from people who didn't want better.
All
right.
Drinking, smoking, lying, food.
This is a big one because nobody wants to feel like they're the only guy.
Are we really masking who we are? Or is it a cover-up? You know, and AD, you mentioned something about you meet someone and you put on.
Let's talk about that, AD, dumbing it down and how big that is. And what can we do to get better with that? And
those
the guilt
relationships, they don't seem to work out right. But what does it do to the individual that's
comes in when you are doing better and you say you have a job and Pablo and Tyrone
viral because the jig is up, so to speak. You know, it's like the Wizard
they're
of Oz.
They're out here stealing.
Really had a lot of
you know what I'm saying? So you feel guilty. So you dumb me down.
Or if that person has a really
what's going on.
So you get the addiction. They have the addiction dumbing down. They have the addiction of stealing.
More addiction. Sometimes even death. You know, it just depends on.
Right. You get what I'm saying?
Psychologically, all these things, come into effect. It can be devastating.
It affects us as young men and even adults at our jobs. We dumb it down, and we don't want people to know what we're
doing. Genuine enough and says, you know what? I don't care about all that stuff. I care about you, who you really are.
When we're young,
it's broken because now you don't have to. You don't have to.
I think that we don't have enough people encouraging
killing you for all these years. You can be free, truly be who you are, and that's
ourselves,
our peers,
whoever we bring on our own.
And I like that.
Dumbing down
said the jig is up with the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
He worked like hell to keep covering up his thing, not realizing that his cover up was holding this is the basis of. So we hold. His cover up was holding Dorothy and everybody else from getting their thing.
If you're intelligent,
and only when Dorothy, like the fairy godmother says, "Hey, you always could have went home. You just have to see it for yourself."
Right.
And one other question here.
This thing that we call addiction.
Child thinking that vice versa. But unfortunately, you know what?
Your body's made up of chemicals anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So we're putting drugs on top
have
of
this
drugs,
complex that we want to
I'm
going to have this close person over, but they don't realize.
And so when we hiding, when we're feeling guilty, we find
desire to want to get out of that phase in their life. So we kind of keep around.
This reality because we're really not revealing who we really are. What do you think about this?
Why do we feel like
that's why you see people that flock to alcohol, drugs.
It's like you have that brother-in-law, or maybe that brother, or that sister.
That's such a great gal. She had all these things going for her, but inside, like you say, inside the heart,
lead you astray and lead you into.
What is the need?
I still give them $10 because I know that
the will to survive. Then you're going to succumb to the world. Right. The world is a jungle. We already know that.
And you can tell. And I'm going to give
you money. I broke his back. Right. This happens so often, right? So
addiction doesn't start in reality.
The drugs really aren't working. So then you overdose and you take a little bit more.
At least for me.
So you're taking the drug to mask their pain, but in reality, what it's doing is causing a a problem as far as addiction is concerned.
You say to yourself, you know what?
To feel like something.
Talk about right. Fear.
Right.
We didn't talk about that. We'll talk about that another time.
You know what I mean?
But the fear of getting better
is
you know what, man? A big thing that triggers a lot of this too.
I don't need to do that.
Again, guys, we're on the final mile here with Studio W here. We're like with Officer AD and Coach Ray Booker with Coach's Corner. Coach's Corner is one of the premier life coaching shows in the country. And I also do The Connection, the nation's only law enforcement show here at Studio W Live on YouTube.
Things are already.
We're going to chime this up. Will, did you have any more questions?
Oh, I guess.
You wouldn't be there.
There was one more question.
That's
kids.
the thing. They wouldn't do it. That's the thing. So we get to the word enabling.
Instead of preparing a proper meal for
because all of these words are offshoots of something else.
And then we end up in a lot of cases with an obese kids, with an obese child. Would you please address that?
Yeah, I think that's super important. I think nutrition is the key.
As well as you dummy down is a form of addiction.
Child, you know, if you're not eating right, if you're not getting the nutrients that you need,
enabling is a form of addiction.
Be able to pay attention. All the curriculum that they need to be healthy, you know.
Enable so many things.
I mean, if
enable our kids.
You're an adult, you're gonna want to eat good food. You're not gonna want to be lazy and go get some McDonald's. But if somebody's giving you McDonald's 6 days a week, well, guess what?
And I don't know. Part of it is social media, society.
I don't know what we're eating realistically, you know. So you have to really be
contribute to
what you.
I'm through playing the blame game. It is what it is.
Spiritually. And in the nutritional wise, you know,
we're big enablers in this country.
You know, okay. First Lady Michelle Obama.
Sometimes I like the support programs that we have.
She also thought that was so important that she started the program of
money making scams.
A lot of Donald Trump, President Trump,
like you said, the bottom line is it starts with you, that you have to make the decision.
He says his argument is one of the biggest purchases of EBT is soda.
To do
we spend more on soda
in your life.
Yeah,
when they get the stamps, than anything. So again, we have a lot of things going on right here. We're about to cut it loose. We have our time is almost up.
Last segment. They're always.
AD, I want to thank you for coming on and making this show a pleasant show, as always. CEO Will, we want to thank you for giving us a voice here at Studio W. Remember, download that app, IMG2, Imagine My God 2. Again, on behalf of Coach's Corner, and behalf of our CEO Will Brown, my name is Coach Ray Booker. This is Officer AD. Till next time, so long, everybody.
I can tell you what happened
right now. It's been Coach's Corner with Coach Ray Booker. Folks, what a fan.